PJ still here from the panel earlier? Okay, good. So SPARK17, we're going to be launching Sustainability Unicorn version 1.0. I love that name. We've got to get a trademark on that name. So hello, everybody. My name is Mike Pridemore. I'm VP of Products, which means I lead up our software engineering and product management teams here at Urjanet. So basically, we're the guys that figure out, well, we don't really figure out what to build. We're kind of told what to build, but we go figure out how to build it right. So we're excited to be here at Georgia Tech. If you don't know, Urjanet was kind of born here. So there was a research project at Georgia Tech that looked into using federated data models to store energy data, and that was really the impetus behind the Urjanet platform that exists today. When we launched the company, it launched at ATDC, which is the Georgia Tech incubator, and really more than 75% of our Atlanta engineering team are Georgia Tech alumni, so we have very deep roots with Georgia Tech. I did not go to Georgia Tech. My team likes to remind me of that occasionally. I went to UCF, which David talked about UCF. Nobody ever talks about UCF. That was awesome. Go Knights. All right. So Sanjay mentioned in his presentation this morning that the 4 S's, and so I'm going to kind of use that as a way to talk about what the product team has been working on at Urjanet since we were together last year at SPARK16. So let's dive right in. Speed. If you ask anybody at Urjanet, what's the most important thing that we do quickly, they'll say one of these 2 things. And the first one is utility connections. So the heart of our product, really the secret sauce that is Urjanet, are these utility connections. As you know, if you've spent any time in this business, there are no standards, there are no consistency, everybody's bills are different, everybody's data is different. It's the reason that we exist, is to take that chaos of utility data that exists today and put some normalcy to it, normalize it, and make it possible for you to use it. So utility connections are these custom integrations that we write to talk to every utility provider that we want to get data from. So by the end of this year, the number is going to be 4,000. We're going to have 4,000 total utility connections. And we have a great connection engineering team based in Chennai, India that focuses entirely on this project, on this problem. And they crank out about 100 of these a month. If you haven't met Shankar is here, who heads up our Chennai office, and you should spend some time with him. He's got great stories about Sanjay when he's a little kid. I'm just kidding. But anyway, so utility connections. Why does this matter to you? Great, you guys have a large number of connections. Well, our goal is to have 100% coverage, right? If you only can get 80% of your data or 90% of your data, you can't get a full picture if you're trying, especially from a sustainability perspective. So every connector we add is one more place that when you open a new facility or acquire a company or merge with a company, that hopefully will have coverage in that area. So our goal is to provide 100% coverage to our customers. The second area for speed that we talk about a lot is account setup and initial delivery. So any customer here that's gone through this process knows that the initial setup, getting your accounts enrolled, getting that first delivery, getting everything connected can be challenging. It's not always a technology issue. Sometimes you just don't have the data. You don't have a good inventory of all of your accounts. So we spend a lot of time thinking about this problem. Where we can solve it with technology, we try to. So we've made extensive use of auto-enrollment, which are special connections that we use simply to enroll your accounts. Though not strictly a product team thing, I'd like to point out or give a shout out to our enrollment team, which grow over 10-fold this year. So this is a team of people in our support organization that's dedicated to help on-ramp new customers, and that team has grown substantially. So we use them as an opportunity to enroll accounts. The other thing is, even though we have all these connections, as you probably know, these connections break. Bill formats change, new tariffs show up, things modify. So we've spent a lot of time trying to improve our error detection so that when something does go wrong and we can't get data for a particular provider, we have a faster way of knowing that the problem exists, getting it routed to the right person and fixing it. So it's a huge area of focus. Really, I would say, combination of product and operations, this is our #1 area of focus going forward. Now let's talk about scale. So scale also kind of means 2 things to us. The first one is global expansion. We really, we played around with some global connections, I think as far back maybe as 4 years ago, but really we put a push on an international expansion last year. So really just in the last year we've been focusing on this, and so far we've already pushed out to 30 countries, which is pretty impressive, I think. The numbers indicate kind of the mass of accounts behind the connections that we have. So in the United States, we have about 85% of all utility accounts in the United States we can access. The number's actually a little bit higher. But even with our early or just recent expansion into international, we've already achieved 90% in the UK and in France. Now, partially that's because smaller markets, less fragmentation, fewer providers, but the point is that we should be able to roll out in other countries, and we already are working on rolling out in South America and Australia and Asia and the rest of Europe. So watch for more of this. Again, the point of this is that for our global customers, we want to provide 100% coverage. So wherever you have facilities, wherever you have offices, we want to be able to get those bills for you. Second area is volume. So we've doubled. Sanjay's talked about we tripled our account volume in terms of total number of accounts that we have contracted, but we've doubled the number of accounts that we're actively getting and delivering to customers. Yay, Urjanet, you doubled your volume. What does that mean? Well, every bill we get can have new tariffs on it, right? Every bill we get can be a new format. So the more data that we get, the better we're getting with every new bill at delivering that data, at accessing the data, normalizing it, and delivering it. So this is good for all customers because it means we have access to more tariff rules, more bill formats. The other thing that it does is we have now providers that we have huge scale with. So there are providers that we literally have tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of accounts behind. So it makes it a lot easier for us to work with those providers to develop these custom integrations, connections, but also if there's any sort of problems, it gives us an opportunity to approach those folks with a large scale of accounts behind. So it's good for all of us. Third is security. This is the sexy one, so hold on. Security is an important thing, but ironically, you know, 2, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when we kind of got rolling with this product, a lot of our early customers didn't really view energy data as particularly sensitive, particularly private. So it's only recently, especially that companies are looking at this as a competitive thing. They're looking at it as sensitive data. I don't want people to know how much we spend on manufacturing and things like that. So while we've always focused on security, there seems to be really in the last year or two really a renewed sense of interest by companies in how are you keeping our data safe, how are you collecting it, how are you making sure that we're the only ones that have access to it. So a couple areas that we're focusing on from a security perspective. The first is encryption. So we've always encrypted sensitive data, your credentials, the things about your accounts that we deemed as sensitive, but we've been rolling out new encryption methodologies over the last year. So what this means is that we can provide different keys for each customer, so we don't have to use one key for everybody. It makes things like key rotation, I know this is exciting stuff, key rotation easier, but it all goes down to mean that we can ensure that you are the only one that has access to your data, that nobody else does. And it's an area that we take very serious and one that we're focused on. The other area is access control. So we're a much larger company now with offices both here in the United States and in Chennai. We have a large number of people that have access to our systems internally, and our customer base is growing. So centralizing access control both for our customers and for our employees, and providing better audit logging so that we're sure who's doing what do they have access to, when did they access it. All of that chain of custody kind of information is important as we start to address bigger markets and specific types of customers. We also have implemented a lot of new policies and procedures around disaster recovery and business continuity and things like that. So not features and functionality per se, but important stuff. I think if you're a client of Urjanet, you appreciate that this stuff's important. And last is self-service. So we talked about this last year, really we launched a product last year really in this area, but if you've been with Urjanet for any period of time, you know that historically the way you've interacted with us is through our customer service team. So our support account managers and our ops teams, you would send in emails, you would open Zendesk tickets, you would fill out account activation forms and so forth. But last year, we announced it at SPARK16 that we were going to begin working on, and then last year at SPARK15 we launched the Utility Data Service user interface, or what we called Portal at the time. So what this is a user interface that gives our customers, and we use it internally, the ability to manage all of their account enrollments, information, credential, all that kind of stuff through a web-based user interface. Happy to say that we have almost 100% adoption. So almost all of our customers are using the portal today. We are using the portal to manage all of our customers today, and it's been very well received. Today it lets you do things like enrollment and account management, but in the future we're adding additional functionality to it, so the ability to manage your delivery configuration, so that we're basically looking for every place where today you have to interact with a person or somebody has to go write code. We're trying to find a way to do that through user interfaces to allow you to have full control over what goes on in the system. Shortly after Spark, we launched the Utility Data Service API. So whereas the UI is geared towards people using the system, the API is geared towards computers using the system. So many of you already have dashboards. You have systems that you've built internally or that you are using from a third party, and you want to wire that into the UDS platform. So you don't want to have to do what you do in your area and then come over and do what you do in ours. This allows you to do that. It's a web-based API that your developers or your contractors can use to write integration points into our systems. And it means that your users, whether they're internal or your customers, can have a seamless experience even though they're using Urjanet on the back end. Maybe they don't even have to know. And last is on-demand. So we talked briefly about this last year, and we launched in October of last year the payment data service. Sanjay touched briefly on the financial services industry this morning. And I know that that's not probably applicable to most of the people here. You're thinking about energy from a bill pay and a sustainability perspective. But what our PDS system did is it provided a way to get data on demand. So whereas most of what we do for large customers and partners today is we get large amounts of energy data on a scheduled basis, right? Every day we get the new bills that have shown up from yesterday. This market demanded something where they could say, here's some credentials and some account information, get me this information right now, or get me this information in the next few minutes, because I'm using that bill pay information to be able to either do verification of identification or to be able to grant credit, to use it as a means of granting credit. What that means is even though PDS may not be applicable to you, the functionality, the ideas behind that really are becoming what we think about as the future of our product. So we want to be able to use the magic that is the Urjanet solution, that ability to extract that messy set of data from the world, but we want to provide it in ways that work no matter what you need. So if you need a utility data service type solution, if you need scheduled ongoing delivery of thousands and thousands of accounts, you can have that. But if you need on-demand delivery of that same data, we want to be able to deliver that too. And that's really, when we think about the future, that's really the goal. So our goal is to give our users full control over the process. That means we have to provide turnkey solutions that just work, right? So things can't kind of work, mostly work, they have to really work. What that means is new functionality too. Some of the things that we're actively working on today are things like an auditing service where instead of audits being done by code, written by Java programmers, and after a lengthy discussion, there's something that you can control through a user interface. The same thing with charge tagging. What if you could go in and decide, I don't like the way these charges are organized. I want to tag them like this. Those are the types of things we're thinking about, the things that give you the ability to control the solution, not necessarily us. It also allows us to accommodate companies of all sizes. So today, our commercial clients typically have to meet a certain threshold, right? They have to have hundreds of buildings, or they have to have thousands of accounts, because otherwise the economics of it don't necessarily make sense for them. But in this model, we can build a solution that works for anybody, whether they have one building or 1,000, whether they have one account or 1,000. And it also, as we've seen with the payment data service, it allows us to take the functionality that exists in Urjanet today and leverage new data acquisition capabilities to solve new business problems like we've done in the financial services space. So this is really what we're talking about here. This is what we're talking about this year, and I hope that over the next year and up into the Spark of next year, we'll be able to launch a lot of exciting new things and roll out new versions of our products that will intrigue and amaze you. And that's it. Thank you.